Anthony Albanese has done what no Aussie thought possible. He's made New Zealand look like the smarter cousin at the family BBQ. But don't get too comfy, mate, because Chris Luxon over the ditch is no hero either. Between these two clowns, the whole trans-Tasman neighbourhood's gone from dream to disaster quicker than you can say cost of living crisis. Before we rip into the Albanese Luxon disaster piece, where Albo smiles while Aussies go broke, and Luxon watches Kiwis flee like it's a national sport, smash that like button like you're rejecting every broken promise they ever made. Subscribe if you're sick of being gaslit by both sides of the ditch. And chuck on the "Tax Me If You Dare" shirt. Wear it to your next protest, rent inspection, or just while you try to fill up the tank without crying. Links in the description. Keep the shirt loud. They need to see it. Let me ask you straight. When did we start voting for blokes who smile while everything burns? Albanese is busy playing Mr. Nice Guy, jetting off to summits, posing for cameras, and meanwhile, Aussie families are choosing between rent and dinner. You reckon that's leadership? Nah, that's a bloke who's either asleep at the wheel or deliberately steering us off the cliff. And Luxon? Mate, the Kiwi PM is out here acting like New Zealand's still the clean green dream, while half his nation is packing up and legging it to Sydney. Something stinks, and it ain't just the politics. Australia and New Zealand, two of the most beautiful bloody places on earth, are being gutted from the inside. And the worst part? The pollies reckon we're too dumb to notice. Albo gives a wink and a speech about opportunity while house prices in Sydney hit $1.5 million for a shoebox. Chris Luxon grins through his bald-headed optimism while nurses in Auckland are working 60-hour weeks and still can't afford rent. This ain't just bad policy. It's betrayal dressed in a suit and tie. Over in New Zealand, Luxon's running the country like it's a corporatized daycare. He keeps preaching fiscal responsibility while the economy's flatlining. You've seen the numbers? Nearly 45,000 people fled New Zealand last year. That's 1% of the whole population. Imagine if 300,000 Aussies just walked out of the country in 12 months. That's not migration, mate. That's an evacuation. And where are they going? Straight into Australia's housing crisis. Albanese wants to talk up immigration, but won't talk about where the hell everyone's supposed to live. Doctors, teachers, engineers, they're not just leaving NZ, they're leaving the dream, and they're landing in Australia thinking it's better here. Joke's on them. Welcome to a place where $40 gets you a sandwich and a juice, and where the government's next great idea is to tax your house before you've even sold it. Jim Chalmers is cooking up fiscal nightmares while Albo smiles in the background like he's just discovered the Vegemite. And somehow, we're supposed to thank him for it. Chris Luxon reckons New Zealand has a fantastic future ahead of us. You know who says stuff like that? A bloke who knows he's cooked the present. Meanwhile, Albanese is handing out slogans like "it's a sausage sizzle" and calling it vision. But real vision? That'd be making sure the people who build this country, the tradies, the nurses, the ambos, can actually afford to live here, not just scraping by, not just surviving, living. Have you looked at the rents lately? Over in Auckland, folks are coughing up $700 a week for a shared room. Shared room. That's not rent. That's extortion. Meanwhile, Sydney renters are applying for 30 properties and getting ghosted like it's Tinder. And what are Albanese and Luxon doing about it? Telling us to be patient. Mate, I've seen milk go bad faster than these two fix anything. And here's the part that'll really roast your onions. Both these jokers are still pretending like everything's fine. Albanese has the gall to talk up affordable housing like he didn't watch the market double in a decade. And Luxon? He's still pretending New Zealand is a shining beacon of social stability, while his own citizens are jumping ship faster than rats on the Titanic. You know how you know it's all cooked? Because the media's playing along. They'll show you a puff piece about a Kiwi sheep farm or an Aussie Barbie, and forget to mention that your average Gen Z can't even afford a mortgage by the time they're 40. They'll give Albo and Luxon the soft treatment while everyday Aussies and Kiwis are drowning in debt, working 2 jobs and still praying for a public holiday just to catch their breath. It's not just the housing, it's groceries, fuel, power bills, Everything's through the roof. Albanese reckons the economy's resilient. Sure, mate. If by resilient you mean we're getting flogged and still showing up to work with a smile. And Luxon? He's all about moving forward, while Kiwis are lining up at food banks like it's bloody Centrelink Friday. Forward into what, mate? A cardboard box? And don't even get me started on the brain drain. Every time a young professional hops on a plane to Australia, New Zealand loses a chunk of its future. Teachers, doctors, builders, gone. And what does Luxon do? Tells them to hang in there. That's rich, coming from a bloke whose own salary could pay a nurse's rent for half a year. And Australia, same deal. Albanese thinks if he hands out a few rebates and calls it a day, the economy will magically fix itself. Spoiler alert, it won't. You know what this is? It's not just bad governance, it's elite indifference. Albanese and Luxon both belong to the same political species, the kind that talks a big game, but wouldn't know the price of bread if it hit them in the face. And don't believe for a second that they don't know what's happening. They know. They just don't care. Because they've got their housing, their cushy taxpayer pensions, their Qantas lounges and driver escorts. You think Albo's worried about paying $2.30 per litre for fuel? Please, we used to be proud nations. Working class, hard-working, fair go, don't take crap from anyone kind of countries. But now, we've got leaders who treat us like a nuisance. Luxon's more concerned about GDP than the guy working night shifts to pay off a student loan. Albanese is more interested in international photo ops than the pensioners choosing between medication and heating. And what do? We keep voting these muppets back in because the other bloke's somehow worse. That's not democracy, mate. That's a hostage situation. Albanese versus Dutton? Luxon versus Hipkins? It's like choosing between being kicked in the guts or punched in the face. And while we're distracted, the real agenda marches on. Housing becomes a commodity, not a human right. Wages stagnate. The rich get richer. And every time we speak up, they call us populist or uninformed. Nah, mate, we're not uninformed. We're just fed up. Fed up with being ignored, priced out, and talked down to. But maybe that's the point, eh? Maybe they want us to be tired, exhausted, too busy surviving to fight back. Because if Aussies and Kiwis actually stood up together and said, nah, we're not copping this anymore, the whole house of cards would fall. Imagine that. Working class solidarity across the Tasman, Luxon and Albanese would wet themselves. You want to know why housing's unaffordable? It's not complicated. They didn't build enough. They let investors treat homes like poker chips. They kept interest rates low while letting prices soar. And now the average Aussie and Kiwi is being told to lower expectations. Nah, bugger that. We're not the problem. The problem is a system designed to screw us over, led by two blokes who think empathy is something you post about on Twitter. But the cracks are showing. You can feel it. People are waking up. They're talking in cafes, in group chats, on picket lines. And slowly, the fear's turning into fury. Because when enough people realise that Albanese and Luxon are just two faces of the same broken machine, that's when the tide turns. So what now? Do we cop it sweet and hope things magically improve? Or do we call it what it is? Economic sabotage disguised as leadership? You choose, mate. Just know that while Albanese and Luxon are up there giving speeches, we're down here living the consequences. And that's just the start. There's more, way more. From secret land grabs to insider deals, from media cover-ups to the way young families are being pushed out of their own suburbs. But we'll get to that in a minute. You're not going to believe what's coming next. Righto, strap in, because this is where the story starts to peel back the nice little layer of PR and exposes the rotten guts underneath. You reckon Albanese and Luxon have just been incompetent? Oh no, mate. Incompetence would be a blessing. What we're looking at now is calculated, deliberate policy choices made for the benefit of the top end of town, while the rest of us get told to just tighten the belt and be grateful we're not living in a tent yet. Let's talk land grabs. In both Australia and New Zealand, we've seen an explosion of foreign investment in residential property over the past decade. And who was rolling out the red carpet for these cashed-up overseas buyers? Albanese's Labour mob and Luxon's National Party cronies. That's who. They say it's good for the economy. Nah, mate. It's good for investors. Bad for first home buyers. Horrific for renters. and absolutely devastating for entire communities being priced out of their own suburbs. You know what's happening in outer Auckland and Melbourne? Multi-generational families who've lived there for decades are being pushed out, not because they want to move, but because they can't afford to stay. The government talks about infrastructure upgrades, and suddenly developers swoop in, buy up cheap land, slap up apartments, and sell them off to the highest bidder. Often not even locals. Albanese and Luxon call it growth. We call it what it really is: displacement. And while we're on the subject of who actually owns this land, here's a spicy little detail you won't hear on 6 p.m. news. Entire blocks of housing in both countries are being snapped up by anonymous shell companies registered in tax havens. Ever heard of the Cayman Islands owning a 2-bedroom in Parramatta? Well, it's happening. And the worst bit? These property moguls are leaving the homes empty. Yep, vacant. No tenants, no life, just capital sitting there, soaking up value while people sleep in their cars. So where's Albanese? Where's Luxon? Shouldn't they be cracking down on this kind of economic vandalism? You'd think so. But nah, both of them are too busy courting the finance sector. See, it's all about optics. Albanese throws around phrases like middle-class mortgage relief, while quietly letting the banks keep raking in record profits. Luxon preaches about responsible management, then signs off on policy that lets multinational real estate giants treat the Kiwi housing market like a bloody monopoly board. And here's another thing no one wants to say out loud. This isn't just about economics. It's cultural. It's about erasing the character of neighborhoods. Gentrification isn't just an aesthetic makeover. It's a forced eviction of culture. The working-class pub turns into a $24 brunch cafe. The local footy field becomes a car park for luxury SUVs. And all the while, Albanese and Luxon are smiling for photo ops with developers like they're building the future. Newsflash, boys. The future ain't worth much if no one but millionaires can afford to live in it. And don't think for a second the media's going to call this out properly. Albanese and Luxon both benefit from a press that's more interested in personality than policy. They'll spend more time talking about Albo's playlist or Luxon's latest haircut than they will the fact that both of them have overseen the most aggressive transfer of wealth from the bottom to the top in recent memory. And why? Because the media owners benefit from it too. They own property. They own stock. They own influence. So they'll keep feeding us stories about cost of living pressures like it's just bad luck, when it's actually engineered suffering. Let's talk education. In New Zealand, teachers are walking out because they can't even afford to live in the cities where they work. In Australia, we've got schools with broken roofs and no aircon while Albanese swans around promising digital equity. What the hell is digital equity when half your kids are hungry, Albo? And over in New Zealand, Luxon keeps banging on about national standards. Meanwhile, schools can't even find enough relief teachers. We've got kids being taught math by part-time PE teachers. Because the system is so underfunded, no one wants the job anymore. But here's the real kicker. Even when they do get the funding, it's mismanaged. It goes to pet projects, bureaucrats, and shiny programs with flashy names. Not to the students, not to the teachers. Albanese loves a media-friendly reform, but where's the accountability? Where's the follow-up? Luxon, same deal. Plenty of spin, zero outcomes. It's all announcement, no delivery. Meanwhile, our kids are graduating into a job market where even a university degree doesn't guarantee you can afford a studio apartment. And speaking of the job market, let's get real about wages. Both Australia and New Zealand have seen stagnant wage growth for over a decade. Productivity's up, profits are up, CEO bonuses are through the roof. But average workers? They're just trying to keep their heads above water. Albanese reckons he's on the workers' side because he once wore a high-vis vest in a photo shoot. And Luxon? The bloke literally ran Air New Zealand like a corporate warlord, and now he's pretending to understand what it's like to live paycheck to paycheck. Give us a break. Let's zoom out. What we're watching here is a full-blown crisis of leadership. Australia and New Zealand used to be places where, if you worked hard, you could build a life, own a home, raise a family, maybe even take a holiday once in a while. Now, you're lucky if you can scrape together a deposit by the time you're 40. Lucky if you get a stable job that doesn't get outsourced or casualized. And if you dare complain, Albanese tells you the economy's strong. Luxon tells you to stay positive. Mate, we're not negative. We're furious. Because here's the ultimate betrayal. They had the chance to fix it. During COVID, when the world shut down, both countries had a rare opportunity to reset the economy, build housing, reform tax systems, invest in local industries. But what did Albanese and Luxon do? Bail out big business, delay hard reforms, keep the status quo ticking along. They wasted the moment. And now, we're back to business as usual. Except it's even worse. And before you say, well, at least they're better than America, let me stop you right there. Low bar, mate. Saying Albanese and Luxon are better than Trump or Biden is like saying a stubbed toe is better than a broken leg. Still hurts like hell. Still ruins your day. Still completely avoidable if we'd just worn proper shoes in the first place. You get the point. Let's talk healthcare. Oh boy. In New Zealand, wait lists for surgery are so long that people are literally dying before their appointment comes up. And over in Australia, good luck seeing a bulk billing GP without a 3-week wait and a prayer. Albanese and Chalmers have turned Medicare into a skeleton of its former self, and Luxon's crew wants to privatise everything that isn't bolted to the floor. What happens when you need an ambulance but can't afford the bill? What happens when your kid breaks a bone and you get told the wait is 6 months for a specialist? You know what happens? People suffer. People die. But at least the health insurers are turning a profit, eh? Let's not forget the climate. Oh, here we go. Albanese gets up and waffles about net zero by 2050, while approving new gas projects in the same bloody sentence. That's not climate policy. That's greenwashing on steroids. And Luxon? The man's about as environmentally conscious as a plastic straw in a turtle's nostril. He's more interested in expanding dairy than protecting water quality. Rivers are turning into cow crap cocktails, and he's calling it economic growth. And this is the scary bit, yeah? The young generation is waking up, but they're waking up broke, burned out, and betrayed. They've got the fire, but not the tools. They want to protest, but they're working 60-hour weeks. They want to save, but inflation's eating their pay. They want to vote for change, but every major party's already sold out to the same donors. But here's the silver lining. Yeah, there is one. People are angry, and that's where movements are born. You don't need to be rich to speak up. You don't need to be in Parliament to make noise. You just need to realise that Albanese and Luxon, they're not the answer. They're the roadblock. And it's time we stopped waiting for them to save us. The solution? It starts with truth. With calling this mess what it is. Not a housing challenge, not a cost of living pressure, but a war on the working class. A class war being fought with laws, with policies, with the slow suffocation of dignity. And if we don't name it, we can't fight it. That's why you're here. That's why this video exists. To pull back the curtain and say, enough. No more pretending. No more hoping Albo suddenly grows a spine or Luxon finds a heart. We build from the ground up. Local protests, worker strikes, online campaigns, pressure on MPs. You think they'll listen if it's just one of us shouting into the void? Maybe not. But if it's hundreds of thousands, if it's voters, workers, renters, and young people all marching in the same direction, then they've got no choice but to listen. That's how change starts. Because the truth is, Albanese and Luxon aren't outliers. They're prototypes. Leaders trained to smile, deflect, and manage decline. But we're not here to be managed. We're not here to be silent. We're here to take back what's ours. So, don't let this video be the end of your outrage. Let it be the beginning. Send it to your mates, post it on your feed, talk about it at work, in class, at the pub. Don't just get mad, get organized. Because the moment we stop accepting crumbs is the moment the table starts to shake. And if Anthony Albanese or Christopher Luxon ever watch this, here's a message for you both. Your time is up. You've failed the people you swore to serve. History won't remember your spin, your branding, or your slogans. It'll remember the families you abandoned, the communities you priced out, the promises you broke. So enjoy the perks while they last. Because the people, we're waking up, and we're not going back to sleep. See you in the next one. And don't forget to slap that like button, like it just priced you out of your own suburb. Oi, and if you're properly fed up, grab the tax me if you dare tee. Wear it to the next rent protest, the next council stitch-up, or just your local servo when you're choosing between groceries and petrol. Keep the shirt bold. Make 'em uncomfortable. Stay loud. Stay furious. And never stop fighting for the Australia and New Zealand they're trying to sell off behind our backs.